This is the social militia, operating on swarm intelligence.
A vulnerable asset, priority target alpha. The youngster's panicked breathing gives it away as the predatory ambush begins. The initial strike phase begins, showing the honey badger initiating a direct assault maneuver. The badger lunges with sudden acceleration. The command and control signal triggers a mass counterattack. This phalanx defense, a writhing fur barrier,
The strategic overmatch the mongooses are creating. By attacking the lateral flanks and rear quadrants, they force the tank-class predator to divide its defensive focus.
As three adult mongooses leap simultaneously, their bodies stretched in full kinetic engine. A tactical retreat is underway. The adults draw the badger's fire, ensuring generational survival.
The documentary explains the social resilience class of the pack. They realize the badger is a persistent threat class that must be physically driven from the territory.
Shaking off the impact and rejoining the fray. This high-energy recovery shows the persistence of the troop in the Battle of the Scrubland.
A tactical stalemate. The energy cost calculus is clear. Both sides, exhibiting combat exhaustion, calculate the risk of further engagement.
Despite the assault, the resilient hierarchy keeps a functional unit.
The honey badger, realizing the cost of breach is too high, begins a tactical withdrawal. The documentary narrative explains the eviction ritual. The troop escorts the badger out, chivying his heels from a safe buffer. The short memory class of the badger. Fear is not a cognitive function for this species.
The power of the band. Unity is the ultimate weapon, a peaceful resolution to the cycle of the wild. In the Kalahari, the badger walks alone, but the mongoose never fights alone.
The persistent hunger class, noting that the badger's high metabolic rate requires constant caloric intake.
The documentary narrative explains the chemical tracking class, noting that the honey badger's anal gland secretions serve as a biological trail. A secondary interception as the Cape Cobra enters the conflict zone. These natural rivals face a third-party threat in this multi-threat arena. The engagement begins. The Cobra strikes with incredible speed, but the honey badger demonstrates its evolved immunity to elipid venoms.
The troop coordinates a flanking maneuver while the badger is locked in combat with the snake. This strategic opportunism allows the alpha female to lead a surgical strike.
The cobra's defensive strike is met with redundant defense. The thick skin deflects the fangs, allowing...
The badger decapitates the cobra with a shattering jaw strike, displaying raw brutality. This lethality...
The honey badger's neutralizing power establishes the hierarchy. A collective shiver runs through the mongoose. Scent marking the cobra's remains, the badger turns its amber gaze toward the mongoose colony. The low-frequency growl...
The second mongoose wave begins. This chirp-based sonic barrage is designed to overload the badger's senses.
This is the critical distance. The berserker knows that any forward movement will trigger a lethal response from the social militia.
In this defensive fortification class, the badger demonstrates strategic IQ. The troop splits into 3 cells, coordinating via subtle tail flicks.
This multi-axis strike is designed to surround.
The documentary narrative explains the hit-and-run attrition class, where the skirmishers seek to inflict micro-trauma and frustrate. This is the biological priority class, where total focus is placed on protecting the future of the colony. This is the chaos factor class. A sudden weather event in the Kalahari can instantly break a stalemate in the ongoing war of the wild. The documentary narrative explains the cost-benefit shift, noting that empty burrows are not worth the caloric drain of
The Asian badger's final defiance. He vocalizes a last roar and aggressively scent marks the perimeter, maintaining Individually, they are prey, but together, they are a force of nature.
With the restoration of order, the colony returns to its biological purpose.
The honey badger enters a new territory, displaying nomadic resilience. For the berserker, defeat is merely a relocation strategy.
The return of the foragers highlights the circular nature of survival. A high-intensity interruption of...
The documentary narrative explains the biological decompression class, noting that while the physical fighting has ceased,
the perpetual guard is maintained against the predatory shadow. For this social militia, the cost of liberty...
Health maintenance class, as a group of slender mongooses begin mutual grooming to remove combat debris.
the documentary narrative explains the ecosystem vulture class, where secondary tiers exploit the exhaustion of the primary. The swarm launches a preemptive strike, a clear display of boundary enforcement. They cannot afford a second seed. The predatory calculus. For the jackals, the caloric gain of a mongoose is not worth the risk of eye injury from the swarm.
The Kalahari dust storm presents an environmental challenge. Visibility reduction turns the tundra into a sepia. The honey badger demonstrates strategic squatting, a utilitarian approach to territorial assets. The fortress advantage makes the troop impervious to the climatic assault raging just outside the bunker.
The juvenile asset class practices grooming an adult. This generational continuity shows the transmission of social cues.
The storm subsidence allows for the post-storm tactical reset. As the Kalahari wipes the slate clean,
This high-definition emergence captures the alpha mongoose breaking the surface seal. This visual reconnaissance rising from the earth like a ghost of the storm. The badger resumes his foraging, reinforcing the persistent menace class.
the documentary narrative explains the nutritional recovery class, noting that energy stores must be replenished after the combat and storm cycle. The badger engages in an olfactory duel, its black nose pulsing with data. It must decode the...
This is the mongoose counter-detection. The sentinel's single chirp triggers.
The badger recognizes the defensive readiness of the mongoose phalanx, demonstrating strategic intelligence.
The threat diverts, allowing the social militia to lower their defenses. Posturing was enough to avert a fight, and they can now resume foraging.
Kalahari midday. The sun at its zenith means heat is the third combatant in the badger-mongoose war.
This intersection highlights information sharing. The birds alert the social militia to threats, turning The badger, a true berserker, demonstrates mechanical precision by tearing off the stinger. This dietary versatility is...
In this display of tactical play, the colony invests in its next generation. For these mongoose, play is the practice for war.
Migration to a new mound. A strategic relocation as the social militia decides to vacate the conflict zone to confuse the badger's tracking.
Adaptability is the ultimate shield.
The badger's retreat was merely a tactical reset to conserve energy for a nighttime incursion class operation. The meerkat Lestigistilas arrives at the secondary fortress. Their rapid fortification is key to...
This demonstrates the fear equity class. The badger's berserker aura creates a tactical buffer zone. The ominous glow of the badger's eyes signal its nocturnal advantage. With stealthy footfalls, the tank begins its shadow infiltration.
Night Watch employs acoustic surveillance, capturing subsonic vibrations through the soil. This side
Multi-point harassment class in action. The agile skirmishing targets the badger's weak underbelly.
The documentary narrative explains the sensory overload class, used to blunt the coordination of the social militia.
Welcome to the Chaos the Night battle class. Remember the rules of the Kalahari. Nature is blind to reputation.
The badger's tactical withdrawal class as he backs away from the thicket. The calculated retreat class, showing the badger
Went on. The collective euphoria following a successful defense hardens the social bond of the social militia.
The documentary narrative notes the price of sovereignty, explaining that every victory in the wild comes with a biological toll. The infant survivor class emerges. We see the contrast of innocence against the battle-hardened adults.
This is the Skill Opportunity class, an ecosystem cleanup class. Every drop of energy is reclaimed by the...
The documentary narrative reflects on the transient nature of violence, noting that the sand has already begun to cover.
The documentary explores the honey badger's healing mechanics class, highlighting its high-speed tissue regeneration.
In the post-war economy class, finding insects is the new priority. Their digging shows mechanical precision.
This is the co-evolutionary bond class. The badger makes the mongoose stronger, and the mongoose returns the favor.
As its dome. The documentary narrative explains the risk-reward management class, noting that thirst is the fourth combatant.
That will evolve. In this fragile environment, the mongoose employs a multi-tiered sentinel strategy.
This is the vertical tension class, a cross-class conflict where the social militia faces a total siege from the sky.
The mongoose fights for his band, and the band is immortal.
This is geological infiltration class. The berserker, a strategic cartographer of the Kalahari, is mapping out incursion routes for the final offensive.
The documentary narrative discusses the structural defense class, explaining how subterranean geometry acts as a force multiplier for the social militia.
This resourcing stabilize hence sucking tuba.
The alpha dwarf mongoose scans the granite ridge. Note the binocular precision as it spots a flivver.
The documentary narrative highlights the battlefield positioning class, explaining the envelopment strategy used by the swarm.
The infiltrator class badger executes a psychological lunge. It charges and suddenly stops, probing the social cohesion of the troop for weak points.
This auditory deterrent class relies on volume displacement, making the swarm appear as a single, giant predator to the badger's ears. This junior warrior stands its ground, a trembling but determined posture. The presence of the alpha inhibits the flight reflex. Fueled by the need to feed her young, the mother's protective rage is absolute. Even the leopard, driven by hunger itself.
The documentary narrative reflects on the fog of war class, noting that chaos favors the bold.
Here we see the command sacrifice class, where the high-tier asset risks total physical failure to preserve the collective.
This is the looming threat class. The badger prepares a final charge, a berserker's last stand strategy.
The total engagement class is in effect. The tank is weighed down by the cumulative mass of the swarm. This gravity defense strategy...
As the swarm persists, the badger reaches its biological battery limit. This is the victory of a
The wild safari style highlights the discipline class,
showing the slender-tailed mongooses backing off simultaneously.
The honey badger's recovery class slowly stands up and shakes off the dust, showcasing the unbroken spirit.
In this golden hour, the balance of power is clear. Respect has been established between the berserker and the swarm.
The 4K camera captures a nocturnal migration class as the badger slowly walks away toward a distant valley. Hardened by the recent badger strike, this community undergoes a nightly social rebirth, flowing like a single organism into the safety of the earth.
The documentary narrative explains the legacy of the phalanx, noting how collective bravery ensures the future.
This is the berserker's peace, where survival is the only metric of success.
Defending the home allowed them to reach this new prosperity. This is the reward for resilience, highlighting their adaptive prosperity.
In the Kalahari, the heart of the band is the Great Wall.
This is the Apex Maturity class. The Mongoose troop has internalized the lessons of the berserker encounter, transitioning into a battle-hardened phalanx.
The generational transfer of lethality means the assets are no longer just vulnerable, but junior strikers. A hopeful glimpse into the future Sentinel class.
The Mother Protector class initiates a Gajical combat class demonstrates the Earth Breach.
The social militia dismisses the bird with a coordinated alarm chirp. The troop conserves its aggression for high-tier rivals.
The arrival at the ancient termite cathedral, a strategic sanctuary class. The completion of the journey means they have outnavigated the berserker's range. The price of sovereignty. Every mark tells a story of collective survival.
The cubs are now hardened survivors in their physiological peak. The swarm's stand saved the next generation.
This shot focuses on the honey badger as he shares a rare resource with his mate, highlighting this hidden side of nurturing and reciprocal altruism.
The badger and the mongoose have fought this war for millennia, highlighting the wild's unforgiving rules.
Having accepted the mongoose victory, the badger excavates a new path. This solitary resistance.
The documentary narrative reflects on the undefeated record of the social militia. Behold the alpha mongoose.
The documentary concludes the safety arc. The nursery is now the entire desert. A visual lullaby.
The eternal march of the species continues. The solo hunter.
In this last micro-detour in the safety class, we see the European bay claw marks intersected by the mongoose. A study.
The shifting desert stars reveal the indifference of time. The wind covers the tracks of the clash.
Her gaze is the shield of the many.
A single rippling wave across the vast tundra. This is the scale of collective existence. The strength of the small.
This final confirmation of success concludes their emotional journey. The fight was for the family.
Behold the berserker, leaping across the void with invincible grace. A testament to the You have witnessed the power of unity.
The cubs are ready for their own battle against the tank.
The Kalahari night, exploding with cosmic clarity over this final sanctuary.
The strength of the one is the badger, but the strength of the many is the law.